Okay, a review of for the test. One of the things you have to understand what this intercept means. It's where it crosses the x or y axis. And in order to determine what the x-intercept is, what needs to be 0? Yes, y needs to be 0. If I want to determine what the y-intercept is, what needs to be 0? X needs to be 0. So what you do here, you find out where does the graph cross the X. And it looks like if I counted, it crosses it at 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like that's 5, okay? So you see X is 5, and it didn't go up or down. Y is 0. Y-intercept, I counted 6. So the X didn't go left or right, but it went up 6. Okay, what if there's a situation on your assessment where you're given a graph and you're given a selection of equations and asked to match it? So one of the equations looks like this, and you're not accustomed to it looking like this, but we still can change it to standard form. Okay, I mentioned standard form is AX plus BY equals C. That means that the coefficient A in front of the X and there's a coefficient B in front of the Y. So in other words, you want the number without the variables to be on the other side of the equal sign. So why don't we just move that over? So if I go minus 12 on both sides, now I have negative 2x plus 6y equals negative 12. Now, you can either use your calculator or the intercept method in order to graph that, and you can match that to the graph that you're possibly given. Okay, now let's see if we can graph this using the intercept method, and then you would, of course, just match it to the graph you've given on your test. So to use an intercept method, we're going to find the x-intercept, we know we need to let y be 0. So x-intercept, don't know what it is, but we know that the y is 0. So let's just mark through the y, because you know 0 times any number is 0, and just work it out like this. Negative 2x equals negative 12. You working it with me? Divide both sides by negative 2. So now we know that x is going to be a positive 6. So we have 6, 0 is our number going on our x. So you go over 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you mark it. Now we want the x to be 0. So I'm just going to mark out the x. So we have 6y equals negative 12. So we now divide both sides by our 6. So y is going to give you a negative 2. So we know x is 0, y is negative 2. Okay, there we go. That's a bad negative 2, but you know what I just said it is, negative 2. So now we know it's no x, so we down 2. Now we just simply graph it. And if we graph the 2 points, let me go back, undo. That wasn't exactly there, so let's do it here, right here. So if we were to graph the 2 points, and of course the arrows are on the end, then we look at our test paper and we can determine did that match. Okay, so you'll have a question like that. You'll have several choices. So you may have to find the x and y intercept for A, B, C, or D, and then just match it with the graph that's given. Or, of course, you can use your calculator. But don't let it confuse you if the question looks like this. If it looks like this, you know you're just going to move the 24 to the other side, make it a negative 24, and use the same procedure we did a few minutes ago by finding the x and y intercepts. You may also have a question similar to this one, but not exactly. If c is a negative integer, just one integer, how does the, sorry for the typo, graph of y equals x plus c compare to y equals x? So we know that y equals x. What is x? X is what? It is the slope or the steepness or the rate of change, whatever you want to call it. And when there's not a number there, it's understood to be 1x or 1 over 1. So that means you could go from the origin, you go up 1 and over 1, up 1 and over 1, and so on and so forth, and you could connect those. But I'm not going to do that right now. So it's just telling you if c is, that's something added to it, it's negative. Okay, how would it compare? And you may have some multiple choice, and maybe you can just explain to me how does it compare. So let's just plug in a negative number then. So if you have y equals, say, x, it's a negative, minus, say, 2. And then let's say the other one is, say, y equals x. Is that what we started with, right? So let's do the one in blue, since I already have my blue pencil here. So y equals x, you know it goes to the origin. So you would go up 1 and over 1, up 1 and over 1. Okay, if you want to go down, you have to go over in the left, down, over to the left. And now we can connect our line. There we go. That's this graph that we're talking about. Okay, so we finished with that graph. Put some arrows on the end. Now what if we had y equals x minus 2? So let's try the red. We go down, 1, 2. And it's the same slope, same rate of change, up 1 and over 1, up 1 and over 1, down 1 and over 1, down 1 and over 1. Now we know that, here we go. So how did it compare? What happened? What happened to the lines? Okay, I'll give you a chance to think about it. Write it down as you do the review. So what happened to the line? You've written down, hopefully you've written down, the y equals x minus 2 line shifted downward, okay, from the origin. The y equals x is at the origin. So just explain it in your own words. What happens when you add or subtract from the y equals x? And remember we said that that is just with no y-intercept because the minus 2 or whatever is added to it is called the y-intercept. Where there's no y-intercept, the graph starts at the origin. Okay, again, you'll have to understand how to graph the equation of a line. We talked about the equation of a line. You can use the y-intercept method if it's in y equals, okay? Or you can use the, y equals method, which is slope intercept method if it's in y equals, or you can use the x and y intercept if it's not. So how would you graph the equation of a line? And better yet, if you were given a graph, how could you match it to the equation? Okay, let's talk about graphing that. How can we determine where to graph it on the x? We have to make y 0. So if I mark through this, that makes y 0. So we can see that 4x equals 27. And so our x is going to be equal to what? So we see this is not going to come out even, but that's okay. I'm not going to change it. So we know that it will be 4 times 6 is 24, and 3 left over be 3/4. So let's not worry about that. So if we were to graph it, x would be about 6 and 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little bit more. Okay? So let's graph the other one. What if it's 3? So we're going to, so you know the x, 0 would be the y. So x is 6 and 3/4 and y is 0. Okay, always make sure it's ordered pairs. Okay, now we're going to mark through the x. So we have 3y equals 27. And so divide both sides by 3. So y is 9. So that's even. So go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you may have to match a graph on your test that may start with, say, 9. It may not all the way go down. You know it's going to get to 6.5, but it may not quite get there, okay? So what you have to figure out as you work each of your choices on your test, which graph matches it closely. So if you look here, you know that the y-intercept, when x was 0, the y-intercept is 9, so it matches this graph. So you may have several choices, A, B, C, D, and one graph. So just determine what the x and y intercept is and test it to see if it matches your graph. Okay, this equation is in standard form. So we want to write an equation, and we want to write it or change it into slope-intercept form. Okay, so how will we change this to slope-intercept form? That's the same as y equals, right? So we must move the 2x to the other side. We did that, I think, the last days of the packet. So we minus 2x on both sides. You remember? This is changing it into what? Y-intercept or slope-intercept form. So we bring down 3y equals 12 minus 2x. Now what do we need to do? We must get the y by itself, so each thing needs to be divided by 3. So this eliminated the 3 over 3. So y equals 4 minus 2/3 x. So is that slope-intercept form? No, remember it's y equals mx plus b. That means the x has to come first. So now all we do is just reverse the orders or switch it up. Y equals 2/3 x plus 4. Now that's how we switched it from standard form like this to y-intercept. You may have to do that on your quiz. Okay, you're going to have to graph given a point and a slope. Remember, m is the same as slope. So let's find our point. It's 2, 3. So we go over 2 and up 1, 2, 3. I hope you can see that. And it's going to put a little dot there. What is the slope or steepness or rate of change, whatever you want to call it? It's 1 over 2. So it means I will go up 1 and over 2. Okay, we have to go in the direction so we know it's positive because that's a positive slope. So now we just use our line and we just connect the two. And that is the graph. Be sure and understand how to do that. Okay, what if you had a graph and you had to graph x equals 2? Okay, so if you were to graph x equals 2, you would find 2 on the x-axis. Okay, so x equals 2, how would you draw that line? You can't draw it horizontal because it would interfere with the x-axis. It has to be a vertical line. Okay, so the slope of a vertical line, what did we say it was called? It was called undefined. Okay, make sure you understand how to find the rate of change, whether it's in the form of a table or in the form of two coordinates. So we know we talked about how you would do it with the two coordinates with the formula y2 minus y1, which is a change in y. So minus 1 is the second y, minus 3 is the first y, over x2 minus x1, which is 4 minus 2. So all I did was just subtract. If you see what I've done, subtracted here, and then I subtracted these, okay? So it's rise over run, so I have to put them underneath each other. So the slope here is a negative 4 over 2, or we can say this is a negative 2. I'm running out of room, but you got it right there. Now, what if it's in a table? You can do the same way in a table. If you get 0, 4 is ordered pair, 1, 6 is an ordered pair, okay? It's easy. You could just write it out. 0, 4. Then you may have 1, 6. So we need the slope of those two numbers or the rate of change. So we're going to just go ahead and subtract 6 minus 4. And that's going to give us 2. And we can go ahead and subtract 1 minus 0. And that's going to give us 1. So the slope for this table, or the rate of change for this table, is 2. So make sure you understand how to find rate of change or slope either way, if you're given a table or if you're given points.